What imprudence, you human being! Face your trial by God.
In the first half of the 1990s, his eye was swooning over all the screenshots of Mega Drive games and whiling away the time until I got my Mega Drive. There was another console that had piqued my interest, but this console was way out of reach for me financially at the time. The Neo Geo would appear in almost every video game magazine produced for the UK, and it would boast of arcade at-home visuals and sounds. But for most UK gamers of the era, the only way they got to play the Neo Geo, and I include myself in that grouping, the only way we got to play the Neo Geo was in the arcades. In the Mega Bowl in Clydebank, they had a Neo Geo multi-system there, and of the 4 games they had on it, there was one that stood out head and shoulders above the rest, and that game was Magician Lord. Magician Lord is a side-scrolling, platform jumping, enemy blasting tour de force, and a good advert of the potential of what the Neo Geo could deliver, albeit at a very high price. The game sees a player take control of the magician Elta as he embarks on a quest to revoke the stolen magic tomes, or books, because that's what they look like, from the hands of the game's main villain Gal, who is hell bent on reviving the god of destruction as a Torsi. Along the way, Elta can collect magic spheres that transform him into several different beings, including the Dragon Warrior, the Shinobi, and even Raijin, who attacks by generating a powerful field of electricity around his body. The game features the usual platform jumping elements common in this type of game, and also feature a pre-end of level challenge, and then an end of level boss.
What imprudence, you human being! Face your trial by God.
Each time you defeat a boss, you reclaim a magic tome. The game ends when Gal is defeated and you have reclaimed all of the stolen magic tomes. The first thing you notice about this game is the quality of the visuals. The developer Alpha Denshi done a fantastic job here. The sprites, the backgrounds, the effects, everything looks fantastic, and this game was a real standout in the early days of the Neo Geo. A good use of the Neo Geo's huge colour palette of 65,536 colours meant the backgrounds never looked drab or lifeless. In fact, this game's background really gave off the impression of depth, especially on the outside backgrounds, and in some of the boss encounters, like this cloud effect at the end of level 2. The visuals had high levels of detail almost everywhere, especially on the opening level, which is a level that really draws the player in. The other trick employed by Alpha Denshi to draw players in was the sound, especially the soundtrack. From the opening level, the music was this fast-paced, infused mix of bass and synth beats, which just seems perfectly suited to the game, and the music throughout was a real joy for the ears. The MVS cabinets always had a headphone jack, and so every time I would go to the bowling, I would take a pair of headphones with me, just to hear the sound on this game. A real bonus on other arcade cabinets of the time. The sound effects of the attacks and the magic transformations are all excellent too. Whether it was a basic attack from Elta in its purest form, or the electricity field of Raijin, it sounded way better than anything on the Mega Drive or Amiga at the time, and it was the same with the explosions too. As this was a Neo Geo game, it obviously had a fair amount of speech as well, although not as much as NAM 1975. The villain Gal would spout this nonsense about "I am destined to die," or "that power is powerless in our presence."
That power is powerless in our presence.
But like NAM 1975, it was so clear and crisp sounding, and even sounded nice through the pair of cheap Sideshow headphones I had with me at the time. The gameplay was very tough and very challenging. Every MVS I seen was 50p a go, and you could spend a fair few quid on this game, let me tell you. Most games of this type would require a small amount of level memorisation, which can be annoying, but in this game there is no point in trying to memorise the placement of the enemies, as they just respawn constantly, and you are always under attack from all sides in this game. At times, it's just relentless. And then there is a platform jumpy bits, which I have always found annoying, mainly because I am no good at them. And Magician Lord is no different on that front. The end of level bosses don't really put up too much of a fight. Overall, the game is tough going indeed. And this is what put a lot of gamers and video magazines off. In most reviews, Magician Lord did not score too highly, but neither did any Neo Geo game of the time. Between the challenge and the cost of the cartridge, it didn't provide value for money, but in the arcade, at 50p a go, it was an excellent game. The game was never ported to any other formats, and so the only way to play this game was in the arcades or at home on an AES console. When I finally got my Neo Geo, I had no intention of buying a lot of games for it, but if I could see a game at a bargain price, I was going to pick it up for sure. But Magician Lord was one of those games that was never really available at a bargain price. I had never seen it for less than £75, and at that time I felt it wasn't worth the price tag. But today, an AES cartridge of this game can go for over £500, and this makes the £75 price tag a steal. If only I hadn't been so tight-fisted in those days. Magician Lord was a game I really do wish I had bought for my Neo Geo, and over the years I have been tempted to shell out some big bucks for it, but it just seems to be getting dearer and dearer as the years go by. But still, I can always play it on emulation, and I often do, is it's a real blast, and for me, it's one of those games that always makes me feel nostalgic, and it always takes me back to those carefree childhood years of the early 1990s. The days before DLC and software updates and patches and the like. It should come as no surprise that Magician Lord is a game that I advise anyone to have a go of. If not for the challenge, then for the fantastic visuals and presentation, but more for the challenge really. And that was my look back at Magician Lord. If you like this video, then please give me a sub and a thumbs up, or possibly a comment or two below if you are so inclined. That's all from me folks. Thanks for watching.